deep diving and manually reading old texts one by one. I have 8 years worth of evidence to go through.
The accusations against me are entirely false, and I have screenshot evidence that directly refutes the claims by my abuser and harasser.
There is no DMs that I have ever personally read that are worse than what you are about to see.
In the middle of 2024, YouTuber MrTLexify came under fire from none other than his ex-girlfriend. Before this, he had been through pretty smooth sailing, making videos on Call of Duty and its various updates. He was long past his peak by this point. That had been years earlier when he made videos on COD Zombies and Black Ops 3, ranking weapons, finding Easter eggs, giving advice. But for the people who had watched him years earlier, these new claims were a shock. What seemed even worse was the amount of embarrassingly pathetic Snapchat messages that MrTLexify leaked to defend himself. Batman himself couldn't get this information out of most people, but for Lex it was a necessary action. After all, it's far better to be known as a loser rather than a pedo. What followed was some of the most insane and messiest allegations seen to date about any YouTuber ever, period. There were tons of videos and documents and screenshots, and even a civil war of sorts within his own friend circle and the wider community. In the end, it seems Lex eventually came out on top. But with all the claims, video edits, additional statements, everything that was being thrown around, it's rarely ever as simple as black and white. With such serious allegations as this, you might expect them to come from a big fallout, but as we're talking about the Call of Duty community, expect it to start from something completely unrelated. On July 21st, 2024, Lex posted a video about a crowdfunded remaster of the Call of Duty Zombies map Transit. The project was promoted previously by various YouTubers, including Lex himself, but the reason for the video wasn't positive. Despite receiving tons of money, the main developer, Danny, disappeared from social media and failed to deliver on his promises. He didn't credit others, ignored criticism, and rarely gave any updates. His maps were described as lazy rips of the original, his coding was just from projects he had made before, and there were accusations that he was just making up delays to get more money from his Patreons. Lex's video was controversial, as a lot of people felt it seemed to excuse the developer's actions due to the light tone and slight defenses he would make for him. With the general consensus being that this was all a scam, it didn't reflect well on Lex. Even to this day, his video has comments turned off, and he was receiving some backlash elsewhere online. It was from this controversy that people started to look into Lex's past, and there's where they found Lex's ex-girlfriend and soon-to-be accuser, Reagan. Also known as Pure Softy online, Reagan McNulty began levying serious allegations against Lex, beginning with a number of videos she posted to Twitter, where she claimed that she was 16 in these videos, where Lex, who was 19, can be seen basically feeling her up. And it was from there that hell broke loose. Reagan began posting multiple tweets alleging wrongdoing of various degrees. Lex was quick to respond, beginning on July 22nd with an extended Twitter post. After sifting through some of the smaller YouTubers, Lex made his stand. He stated that he and Reagan had met when he was 17 and she was 15, and that he had told her initially that they were both too young to date. What followed was a relationship and a number of breakups and getting back together. Lex's premier point is one of offense, claiming that their final breakup was because Reagan had cheated on him with a minor. This minor was a 17-year-old named Lawrence, whilst Reagan was apparently 21, and Lex had some receipts, which were several of Reagan's diary entries where she fawns over Lawrence. To support this, Lex would then post DMs from Snapchat where Reagan seems to brag about her relationship with Lawrence and him being underage, though she does mention that she is 20, not 21. But this was not the part people focused on. Rather than showing just this little screenshot or one-page recording while scrolling, Lex's post is nearly 6 minutes of their conversation, and most of it is Lex sounding like an embarrassing, pathetic loser, begging and pleading for Reagan's love while she basically tells him to bugger off. Seriously, these DMs are horrific, and I don't even think Lex did anything illegal here. Lex's offensive wasn't over, as on July 25th, he posted a Google document providing various screenshots and accusing Reagan. This ranges from fights where she bit him or hit him with a wooden board, her getting him drunk, causing damages and being pretty, mean. Lex would also show DMs that pretty clearly paint out Reagan extorting him, using him for money and leveraging the aspect of releasing allegations against him. He also made a point of saying that Reagan had initiated their relationship and lied about doing so later. The rest of the document includes DMs where Reagan is confronted on a diary theory and seems to go back to loving Lex to keep him from doing anything about this. This happens again when Reagan admits she messed up, lied about cheating, and begs him to stay. On the other hand, she can be seen threatening to release a document to destroy Lex's life, or telling him to get over her cheating on him and throwing threats around. The document ends with Lex showing his threats of legal action. Lex had come out of the gate swinging. Before Reagan even had a chance to talk about her allegations, he was trying to get this done as soon as possible, already putting pressure on her, levying allegations against her of toxicity and physical harm. But Lex failed to have the final say. With a combined 140 pages, Reagan's 2 Google documents publishing her main response were daunting, but they were mostly screenshots, and thankfully it all gave us a much more clear perspective on this entire situation, rather than the confusing hellhole the public had been thrown into. Reagan lays it out fairly clearly. It began all the way back in 2016, when she was a 15-year-old fangirl meeting an 18-year-old Lex at a meet and greet. The two soon became friends online after Reagan had been replying several times to him on Twitter. It began with a follow back, then a message about needing help with the Easter egg on the COD map Zetsubo no Shima. From there they had long calls with one another, which eventually turned into a relationship. The following year the two met up in California in July 2017, where Reagan reportedly had her first kiss with him in his hotel room. As their meetups continued, Lex's issues became more apparent to Reagan. She accuses him of everything from inappropriate touching whilst he took her to Disneyland, to Lex lying about Reagan's age to get her into parties in Los Angeles with the Z House, a group of fellow COD zombie YouTubers that Lex was friends with. Whilst there, she notes that Lex got her drunk and tried to take her back to the hotel for, well, you can guess. This is where she claims the video she posted come from. Over time, Lex's behaviour would become the norm to Reagan, allegedly begging and wearing her down for sexual things and sending explicit pictures. And it eventually led to him taking her virginity. Reagan would also supply proof of them having sexual messages in 2018, when she was 17. Reagan would accuse Lex of being overly sexual and toxic to her, and supplying her with weed at 16, something she claims got her addicted, all whilst Lex was apparently already cheating on her. Reagan accuses Lex of continuing this cheating behaviour up until 2023, where he was messaging, quote, barely legal girls on Bumble and buying OnlyFans from them. Then Reagan confronted him in the middle of the night and taunted him, making comments about her being too old for him now. He responded by allegedly lunging at her throat and choking her, only stopping after Reagan bluffed that she was recording him. It was after this that Reagan claims the Snapchat conversations that Lex posted had happened, putting reason to his incredibly apologetic and submissive nature there. This was not the first time Reagan said their relationship had gotten physical. She states it happened before in March 2021, when Lex rented out an Airbnb for 3 months to stay with her. During a time when they were play wrestling, Lex apparently got too aggressive and Reagan bit him out of fear. This is meant to be a rebuttal for one of Lex's claims in his document. During their stay, Reagan and Lex got into a fight again, this time over the weed they were having. Lex apparently got heated with her, he broke the tray whilst taking it out of her hands, she threw the broken tray at his back, and then he lunged at her and choked her. Following this, after Lex went back to Canada, he reportedly sent over flowers and really weird love letters to make up for what he had done. Sorry. No. First off, Dad, I want to apologise for the flowers on this image not being pink. I tried for hours looking for a sexy cutie background for my love letter to Lovebug, but I could not find it and I can't change the colours on them to make them look pink, so Dada, apologise in advance, my sunshine girl. Second off, you'll be receiving an array of gifts exclusively from your Dada that hopefully mirror the same thought that you put in towards the previous care packages you've sent me, so I hope you recognise the thought and love I put into it at every corner. I want you to be fully happy and to be forgiven, so you realise I'm not the same person who did these terrible things to you. Enough about Dada, because that is my main problem here. Being too selfish and not being considerate enough about my baby girl's feelings. This is awful. Why did I choose to read out this? I know this whole problem started from the cartoon. What? The cartoon? And I want you to know that I will never put you below anything like that again. It is not important and valuable as what you mean to me, because you are my shining light girl, my cheap. Okay, I'm laughing at someone's cringy love letter. Dada promises from here on out to listen to my good Minx girl and provide when needed. Dada will improve the Minecraft world and make sure that you love it just as much as you used to love Dada. I'm building a surprise on it right now that I think you will really like. Alright, there's so much more of this. I'm not reading it. There's just... Wait, what the f***? horrific. The front of the letter says, dada girl, dada, sweet pea, sexy princess. I love you, please forgive. This is horrific. During 2023, Reagan confronted him on what he had done to her, and Lex's primary concern is that he doesn't want to get exposed, before switching to accusing Reagan of deflection and seeking validation from him. Their communication stopped in September 2023, with him apparently stopping off the payment of her rent as hush money. When the allegations began circulating, Lex panic texted Reagan's mother, lying about the relationship, and stating that he will sue her and put her in jail for a relationship with Lawrence, whilst also noting that Reagan could not charge him for statutory as the crime had expired, before again offering to pay their rent and ordering Reagan's mother to tell her to delete her posts. Then he baits ending it all. The end of Reagan's document mainly goes over her response to Lex's initial claims, responding to his claims of extortion, with DMs of him referring to her as his pay pig and expressing an interest in giving her money for his own kind of thing. There's also a bunch of DMs where Lex is complaining about the LGBTQ woke virus or whatever, which was actually the last conversation they ever had. Reagan also responds to the claims of her grooming a 17-year-old Lawrence, saying that they met through a co-worker when she was 20 and he was 17. She denies anything inappropriate and said she did not seek Lawrence out for his age. It's worth noting that for a lot of the claims here, Reagan didn't have solid proof that supported everything. She posted screenshots for a lot of what she had, including pictures from when those events would have happened, but not much that supports them actually happening. To some extent, I do understand you can't prove everything that happens in these scenarios, but it is worth keeping in mind going forward. Regardless, in the wake of Reagan's document, public opinion began to shift against Lex. A few of the Call of Duty YouTubers who Lex was friends with would cut ties, some of them supporting specific claims that Reagan had made.
I have spent a lot of time feeling bad about Lex and Reagan's modern day relationship, and looking at it now, I again feel so betrayed because I thought that Lex was in a toxic relationship, and it turns out that it was Lex that was the abuser in this, and it was Lex that was the toxic person.
One of the funniest parts of this backlash was that clips resurfaced of Lex in 2017 talking about a 16-year-old diva from Overwatch, which would have been recorded around the time Lex was dating Reagan, who was 15.
I mean, look, when you think of your stereotypical anime, what do you think of? Mechs and hot chicks.
I give you that.
I understand that Diva's 16 years old. We figured this out in the last video that we were just recorded.
I thought she was 15, dude, but like
all right, look,
16's a little bit better, but that's a no-go.
I thought she was older. I'm not into that, but I'm just saying she's a...
He went into the hentai section.
They obviously sexualized her. Okay? They obviously made her like a very pretty character. And what do you see in animes? You see chicks and mechs fighting. I insulted every anime watcher on Earth.
No, but seriously, remember that time when we were gonna make a smasher pass on
We were gonna make a smasher pass, and then we just realized that Diva's not even of age.
Oh, dude, we're going to jail. We're going to jail. This is the end.
It would take until August 7th for MrTLexify to post a full response to his channel, and if I had to summarise the takeaway from it in a few words, I would say that the video establishes that Reagan is crazy. There are several screenshots where she's being psychotic, incredibly verbally abusive, going back and forth between berating Lex and then threatening to end it if he doesn't do what she says. There's messages of blatant extortion, directly threatening to expose him if he doesn't give her money. There are even implications that she was responsible for letting Lex's account get hacked. As for the physical incident in 2023, Lex shows that Reagan blackmailed him into giving her money if she deleted the recording that she never had, and clarifies that at this point they were never dating. He also disputes the bruises as coming from a car accident she had. One of his best points came from refuting Reagan's claims that he was seeking out young girls, a claim that obviously was made to link him to some sort of pedo behavior. Lex responds stating he never messaged anyone underage, and that apps like Bumble have a limit where you have to be 18 years old to sign up. Reagan also baselessly accused Lex of using his platform and influence to get with girls by just listing that he's a YouTuber, another dumb point which Lex catches because what else would he be able to put there? He also shows that Reagan was provably cheating on him and bragging about it. The thing I don't get is why Lex was on Bumble in the first place if he denies anything like cheating, because in his words, he was just messaging these other women to escape the relationship. That sounds like such dodgy wording, I don't even know what to make of it. If you cheated, you cheated. I doubt people would care at this point if the circumstances you're describing actually happened. Lex also accuses Reagan of cheating on him with multiple minors, not just Lawrence, and using his house for OnlyFans pictures, offering money for these people to take these pictures. He also claims that Reagan was kicked out of Lawrence's house after lying to them, saying she was the same age as Lawrence. Worth keeping in mind, these claims have about as much proof as parts of Reagan's document, but to be fair, this lines up with what we saw in the diary entries, as well as Lex showing far more incriminating ones where she directly mentions his age. Lex then denies the physical claims, beginning with the Airbnb incident in 2021, saying that he was assaulted. He points out Reagan's weird wording of throwing the broken tray at his back out of self-defense, even though his back would have been turned. He also shows a lot of property damage, claiming that Reagan was responsible for it. His logic here is a little dumb though. His reasoning is that this fight over the blunt could have never happened because Airbnb hosts don't allow drugs, which I just instinctively knew was off.
Reagan says she was using marijuana, which is not at all possible, as Airbnb hosts do not allow drug use on their property.
Sorry to break it to you, Airbnb host, but people do drugs in your homes. That's just a fact. Lex also claims the bite marks never came from play fighting and happened after an actual fight following her looking through his phone. Lex's video ends off with an affirmation of his Christian faith and of his innocence, along with pointing out that police and lawyers have looked into this, whilst Reagan never made a report. And that is probably the last good point I will give to this video. Whilst Reagan's document made claims of disparate screenshots, Lex's video makes absurd claims of plausible scenarios with no actual proof to support it. There's a part where he tries to discredit this DM, where he's sexually messaging Reagan and calling her a minorling, and his defense is that in the screenshot the phone uses 5G, and that 5G wouldn't have been around when she was 17.
The text message of Reagan alleging myself calling her my minoring is false, as proven by people finding the 5G symbol on the phone when this was not invented at the time of the screenshot.
This is disregarding the fact that A, the screenshot is from Lex's phone, not Reagan's, and B, this could have just been Reagan looking back at old conversations to take screenshots, something both parties have done with their Twitter emails. Such a dumb point to make, and it's not the only one. There's a clip where he claims that Reagan saying she's a dominant woman actually means she's a predator.
Well, if you like Findom and if you want somebody to be like your dominatrix, I'm here for you.
Ironic considering his own comments to her on Twitter DMs. One of the dodgiest parts of Lex's entire response is the Z House parties, where he's alleged to have lied about Reagan's age to get her in, and then later performed acts with her. Lex confirms that he did lie about her age to get her in, but that she asked first. He then denies that what they did ever took place, saying that Reagan admitted as much in a DM.
Nobody at the Z House ever witnessed any abuse, as this simply did not occur. This includes the accusation that never happened.
But does she really? Lex uses this tactic to great effect, throwing a bunch of screenshots on for a few seconds, hoping you just assume that these screenshots are related to what he's saying. But if you read them, they don't prove anything. The screenshot just says that her friend did it before she did. It's entirely possible it still happened. As for the claim that she asked him to lie, there is a lot more circumstantial evidence towards this, a history of her saying she wants to lie about her age. But does it make a difference if she asked you first? You still said yeah as the older party. Lex even goes on to say that he was forced into lying.
Specifically, I would like to formally apologize to Pat, or the Smith Plays, and everyone involved at the Z House, where Reagan made me lie about her age to you.
How on earth does a 16-year-old force you, a 19-year-old, into lying about their age? Unless there's direct blackmail or threats or anything like that, and you haven't proved that at all, it is still your responsibility. In this part, he also talks about the videos that were posted of him and her at the Z House parties. His point here is that they were already in a public consenting relationship.
The video she cites as evidence is misleading, as we were already in a public consensual relationship, which can be seen in numerous social media posts where she is showing me off and bragging about how much she loves being in a relationship with me.
but all the tweets he throws on screen to support his claim are from 2019 onwards. Lex, Reagan claimed this happened in 2017, 2 years before these earliest tweets. What kind of evidence is this? Just shifting the year away to someplace else shamelessly? Just blatantly lying? When it comes to the start of his relationship, Lex's defense in general really just boils down to the minor just wanted me dude. His defense is just flashing up screenshots where she liked them being in bed together and being obsessed with him in multiple ways. Sure, this is really weird, but in cases of grooming, the accusation that is being made here, the minor is fine with it at the time because they don't understand yet. That's the reason why it's wrong and so serious. There are aspects I understand disproving, like who initiated certain parts of the relationship, but Lex is just throwing screenshots out, showing that Reagan initially lied about her age, and that she messaged me first and she said it was all illegal, but at the end of the day, Lex still knew her age, was fine with it, and lied about it to get her into parties. And if you're sitting there thinking, wow, all this over a 3-year age gap?
Lex started dating his ex-girlfriend when she was 15 and he was 18.
I don't care about that. And second of all, I don't think 15, 18 is that big of a deal. You could say like you think it's inappropriate, it's not predatory. I don't really care about 15 and 18. It doesn't mean anything to me.
Sure, I get it, but I'm only playing by Lex's standards here. Lex has and still is full force levying a claim that Reagan is a pedophile over a 3-year age gap, especially when he uses that term to target someone else's sponsor.
You had said you had looked at all the evidence, but conveniently skipped out on how Reagan is a definitive pedophile proven by her own diary and words. I don't think PlayStation Studios wants to associate with a cheater who defends pedophiles such as my ex-girlfriend Reagan.
So would it not be reasonable to hold Lex to his own standards when the proof that he has shown against his own instance of this is either admitting to it or showing nothing?
I thought she was 15, dude, but like
All right,
16's a little bit better, but that's a no-go.
This goes for Reagan as well. The fact that both these people are calling each other a pedophile, despite also being guilty of it under their own standards, is indisputably stupid. I mean, Lex literally uses a definition that Reagan is a reverse predator, i.e. a kid who preys on adults. This is moronic, incredibly moronic. When responding to the claim of sending weird, unhinged love letters to Reagan after the incident in the Airbnb in 2021, Lex says these letters are forged, and uses the bottom of the letter as his main evidence.
The letters Reagan shows of mine are all typed and have been forged by her to further defame my image. She claims that my company name on the bottom of these letters was edited.tv, which is completely false. If you actually go to the website, the LLC name is Velvet Platform LLC and not edited.tv co.
But here's the really interesting thing about this. If I was Lex and I was responding to this claim, my first point wouldn't be that I was supposedly using the wrong name to refer to my company. I would have probably brought up how edited.tv or Velvet Platform LLC wouldn't have existed for another year at the time. Yes, edited.tv was only launched in March of the year after this letter. My point here is why Lex's immediate defense is to go to the correct name of the company and not the fact it didn't exist at the time. And of course, when would Lex ever refer to himself as the CEO of Edit.tv and not Velvet Platform LLC? I mean, that's his main point to disprove this all. Surely the exact same wording couldn't possibly be found in his Edit.tv dashboard profile bio on the video he made announcing the damn website, could it? This guy's so much of a professional that he would sign off his love letters with the right company name, but won't do the same for his big ol' website. What an absolute asspull of an excuse. In his response, Lex also uses the video to prove that Reagan is a covert narcissist, and whilst the screenshots definitely show her being verbally abusive and incredibly toxic, his source of covert narcissism is kind of dodgy. His mental health diagnosis is determined by a video by Coach Ryan H., a TikToker and YouTuber who styles himself as an internet dating coach, relationship coach, and a life coach. Nowhere in his work has he ever claimed to be qualified in anything. He's never been a therapist or a psychologist, but he is an Air Force veteran, who by his own words, bases his perspective on mental health and relationships from experience at boot camp. He claims to have been trained by a psychotherapist mentor, but he seems very shy to mention that anywhere outside his website. This guy's never been a qualified psychologist and just sells you courses. So it's an interesting source to hinge your mental diagnosis on. I don't know how you're claiming love bombing when we've seen your Snapchat messages. To conclude this segment, Lex's video does not exonerate him. There are generally good points made and it definitely shows that Reagan is pretty dishonest, toxic and abusive, but there are considerable amounts of lies and downplaying some pretty serious claims. And I guess it worked because Lex's video was received extremely well and most of his fans believed he'd beat the allegations. To this day, most people still think that, but it wasn't as if Reagan didn't have anything left to say. On the 31st of August 2024, Reagan posted her big response, titled, "My story of getting groomed by my favourite YouTuber, MrTLexify." It's a 2-hour video, composed only of Lex talking accompanied by numerous new screenshots that she provided. It's a lot, but what was so important to me was the most egregious screenshots. There are 2 main confirmations in this video that are incredibly important. First, Reagan shows DMs of Lex admitting to choking her, specifically the incident in 2023 where she confronted him. If you remember, Lex's response to this claim was to show that Reagan blackmailed him into giving her money if she deleted the recording, which she never had. He states his actions were self-defense.
The second incident was staged, as evidenced by her Part 2 document where she admitted she would delete this choking video if I provided her with a boob and nose job. Reagan woke me up at 5 a.m. and physically assaulted me after looking through my phone and seeing text messages of mine with other girls. The physical abuse was so bad that I had to self-defend and restrain her to get her away from me. Once again, keep in mind, we were not dating, and I was solely there to get my belongings and help her move into a new place.
Here are the DMs Reagan shows. "I feel like the worst. All I'm really upset with about is how we physically fought. Yeah, me too. I'm never going to touch you again, by the way. Ever. I hope I make that evidently clear. I am not going to touch you. You will always be respected and always have your space with me. Like I said before, I am in your debt for life, for my actions. You ask me for anything. I'm just forced to feel hollow. I never put you through that. You deserve to be thrown in hell for that type of evil. I honestly forgive you, but I don't want this, but I'm still attached to why. To not be able to forgive me for something you've done an amplitude of times to me? Lol, it reminds me of when you choked me and you got on the floor and cried. Even though I was the one who got choked and you got slapped on the back. I've never done that to you. Not the choking, the first thing. And that you have a whole Google document. It makes it hard for me to feel love to someone who can blackmail me at the drop of a hat. Why aren't you upset at yourself for choking me and telling me you're gonna kill me? OMG. I am Reagan. Do you see how backwards you are? Okay, I apologize. I know it was part of the link play at the time too, but you don't acknowledge that. You used me choking you as an excuse for everything you wanted to do. And I mean, that's it right there. Lex just straight up admitting to it. I mean, what more can you really say? And if that all doesn't convince you, here's just one more thing I noticed that I want to make clear. In the Snapchat DMs that Lex himself posted, and that Reagan alleged were after the Airbnb incident, Lex tells Reagan he's taking anger management classes online. The other big thing that Reagan disproves is Lex's established narrative about their earlier relationship. What Lex showed was an obviously very one-sided view of her being sexual. What he doesn't show is the numerous times he was being far more sexual in the relationship earlier, including stuff around Reagan being younger. Lex also implicitly made a point that he did not do anything with Reagan when she was a minor, showing DMs that he's reshaped to allude to this. However, again, he doesn't outright deny Reagan's claim.
She explained how she sent me the video in 2020 saying how she thought it was so cute and how she loved that we did that together. There's proof of her lying, saying that she wanted to turn 18, how the only way for us to work was for her to lie also about her age, and also how she says she wouldn't have in 2018 because it's illegal, almost like you have proof of you saying you'd wait until December 13th until you were legal.
Here is outright admittance from Lex again, stating that he did what he was accused of on August 31st, 2017. It's worth noting again of Lex's messages to Reagan's mother, stating that Reagan could not legally do anything as the incident had already expired. He definitely seemed to have his priorities straight. Regarding the Airbnb incident in 2021, one of Lex's main defenses was that there could not have been weed if the Airbnb host did not allow drugs. Well, just as I suspected, Reagan posted pictures of them smoking weed in the Airbnb, disproving another of Lex's lies. Lex also claimed that Reagan was responsible for his computer being hacked. This was another lie. Lex had used screenshots of Reagan talking about her own computer being hacked. Reagan then showed the actual screenshots where Lex was hacked. Again, another lie from Lex, just thrown out there probably to smear Reagan as much as possible. There are also just some DMs here that are plain funny, like Lex apparently saying that Corp's husband does coke with Mr. Beast employees. Reagan also shows proof that contrary to Lex's lie that he was in Thailand for summer 2018, he only spent a fraction of it there, and most of it with Reagan, probably lying about this to obscure how close he was with her. So you may be hearing everything I'm saying right now and feeling astounded. How on God's green earth has none of this got more traction? Reagan is literally showing proof that Lex has lied and is admitting to some pretty serious stuff. Well, with everything I presented, I'm not gonna just ignore and act like Reagan's video was perfect or even particularly good. There are valid reasons why a lot of the audience didn't really see this. For one, Reagan's video includes screenshots of her at 16 in acts with Lex, something which would count as illegal material, and yet she puts it in the video and plasters it over the thumbnail. It's no surprise the original was taken down from YouTube. I just have to emphasize how incredibly stupid this entire move was. Why would you ever put that as a thumbnail or put it in your video at all? It's beyond comprehension. Reagan also addressed the situation with Lawrence and does not even acknowledge the existence of her diary entries about him. It's crazy because her video is very long-winded. It goes off on random tangents that don't amount to much, and it's filled with her emphasizing every accusation she makes. She tries to paint everything in the worst way possible against Lex in every situation, giving no leeway to anything and not conceding on any of the fair points Lex had made. And of the incredibly incriminating proof she provides, most of that was far into the video. If I was making this video, I would have definitely made that one of my first points. When it came to one of the essay stories, there's a really convoluted version where she says she used hickeys as self-defense against him, and that she did extort him, but that was in response to Lex's extortion. Also, she says she can't include some of the screenshots for copyright reasons. I'm not sure she knows what that's about. This is not a good video, and it's not surprising why people ignored it. There are so many reasons, but solely from the worst screenshots that have been presented, Reagan outright proves some of her points and shows how avoidant Lex has been about certain claims. It's just that no one saw it because the thumbnail had illegal material and it's 2 hours long. Also, Reagan has chosen to be utterly avoidant about claims against herself. Lex has since declined to respond to any of Reagan's further claims, as he seems to be totally and utterly focused on the legal route, something that we unfortunately can't look into. Our view of the situation remains at a standstill. Whilst the stuff about Reagan has all been covered, this is not the end of the video. There are a few claims from others surrounding Lex, claims that I've been purposely avoiding to save them for now. When Reagan's document first came out, a number of Lex's friends immediately cut ties with him. Lex doesn't hesitate to give them a piece of his mind in his response, as he goes at Pat or the Smith Plays, Noah J456 and JC Backfire. With Pat, he had DM'd him after a statement saying he was making a response, only to be left unread. With JC, he talks about how he vented about his relationship to him, only to be ignored. With Noah, he discusses the handling and sympathy towards his cheating scandal in 2021 in comparison to how Lex was treated, citing Noah's cheating as the reason the Z House never continued. All pretty fair points to make, especially when Noah's first response was to stream and try to force out a tear, and then bring up completely different clips in his response video and frame it as if he didn't say way more about Lex, as well as making the point of them both drinking, despite Lex and Reagan being under the drinking age at the time, whilst he wasn't. The problem I have with Lex's part here is that he just goes on to accuse JC of cheating on his girlfriend with his sister, just out of nowhere, using Reagan as a source.
If you want to trust my ex-girlfriend so much, here's a post Reagan made about seeing you cheat on Emmy with her sister Kate at Coachella. Everybody in our group saw your inexcusable actions and were utterly shocked that you would be sensually touching your girlfriend's sister in front of all of us while Emmy was not there.
I understand the point he's making here. He's showing that all these people were fine to believe Reagan at a word and displaying how that backfired. The problem I have is that there's just no point of including it, especially when you've already shown fair concerns with JC. Lex must have known that putting this out there would throw a harmful accusation against JC, even if it's from Reagan, someone who has been trying to prove is an unreliable narrator for the entirety of the video. He still included this claim here. And per his comments, he seems to be siding with this accusation. And for the crime of supposedly cheating on your girlfriend with her sister, something that was later disputed by multiple people in Noah's response video, Lex then directly targets JC's PlayStation sponsor.
I don't think PlayStation Studios wants to associate with a cheater who defends pedophiles such as my ex-girlfriend Reagan.
I just find this to be utterly abhorrent and cucks behavior. Sorry, but I don't think targeting sponsors on people's paychecks is remotely justifiable, bar a few exceptions. It's an utterly stupid standard to set, and is basically shooting yourself in the foot by leading all these sponsor crusades, naively thinking that the same could not be used on you. And it's used on JC, the guy who's probably been the least vocal out of everyone mentioned here. Lex also falsely accuses Noah of inviting another YouTube pedo, Misled, to his DJ set. This is despite the fact that the event was literally open invite, and also he has his back turned pretty much the entire time. Back on July 23rd, another user came out about MrTLexify, known as Alex. Contrary to popular belief, her case came first to the public, not Reagan. Reagan even shows messages where Lex is paranoid messaging her mom about Alex, this completely random person to her. Alex claimed that during 2018, Lex had DM'd and talked to her over Skype, even apparently saying he wanted a friend in Ireland that he could visit. Alex was 13 at the time, whilst Lex was around 20. Her public interactions supported that she was a fan of his at the time, and her screenshots, though minimal, did show that these DMs and a call happened. In his Google Doc response, Lex only addressed this briefly, stating he had called Alex to vent about his relationship with Reagan. Quote, "I've never gone after teenagers. Alex has posted a photo of me calling her to vent about my ex. That's it." He would later respond to Alex in his big response video.
Alex was a fan of my channel, who had messaged me first because I momentarily opened my Twitter DMs to the public. Alex was the one who initiated the conversation with me. Our communication included a short Skype call, during which I discussed the abuse I was currently experiencing with my ex-girlfriend Reagan. The conversation was strictly non-sexual and was never taken anywhere inappropriate. Alex was simply a kind fan that I confided in after a heated argument with my ex-girlfriend Reagan. Alex has also come out to admit that she has never accused me of doing anything wrong.
A few things stand out from this response. Mostly it's the fact that Lex is stating that he did in fact message this 13-year-old to vent about his relationship. No denial as of yet of knowing Alex's age, or the fact that he apparently was going to meet up with her. It's very weird, especially when he had so many others to talk to, he decides to confide in this random 13-year-old fan about his troubles. Probably because this was 2018, and if he told anyone from the Z House the truth, they would think he's a freak. Secondly, Lex completely misrepresents Alex's statement here. Lex claimed that Alex had stated he never did anything wrong, but that isn't what was said. Alex said MrTLexify never did anything illegal, and I'd say there's a big difference between the two. In fact, looking up Alex's tweet about Lex at the time showed that she very clearly believed that Lex did something wrong. It's another case of Lex showing something and telling something else. Lex brushed over Alex's claim fairly quickly, and it wasn't until Noah J456 highlighted it in his response video that Lex actually responded. On September 12th, 2024, at the back end of a long video on Black Ops 6 Zombies, Lex included a 2-minute segment responding to Alex and Reagan. In this, he shows more proof and clarifies he did not know Alex's age during their conversations. He states his intentions were purely to help after she had vented to him.
I want to conclude with one final note clarifying the accusations thrown at me from the drama with my ex. The accusation Noah brought up about a fan named Alex that messaged me and tried to frame me as someone who would visit her when she was 13 years old is a misconstrued lie. Alex took a username made by Pure Softy called Lex My Babe, which uploaded baby photos of me that I had only ever thought my mother had of me, so I was beyond perplexed as to how these private images of me had ended up on the internet. Alex insinuated to me that she was in university when we first conversed, and I had only ever mentioned going up to Codename Pizza's wedding, never to go visit this woman, especially as she was avoiding telling me her age. Alex then decided to message me about her past, in which I gave advice to her and hoped she would continue living, as evidence from one of her own deleted posts. As said in my last video, there was never anything inappropriate ever said before or after Alex told me her real age. I'd simply wanted to help a kind fan. My legal case is ongoing, and so I plan to continue uploading content on both of my channels. If you don't want to watch, you're more than welcome to leave, but I will always put my heart on my sleeve and help others, as I'm simply not a content machine, but a person trying to help others.
Whilst this does seem like a good response, there were a few things that were out of place. Lex lays out the timeline of this conversation, and whilst he does seem to disprove stuff, like the claim of meeting an island, he omits the inclusion of when he called Alex about his relationship. This is important because if he was just trying to help her while she was venting, that would make more sense as to why he opened up. In fact, I believe he wanted to convey this sort of message to the audience, that he was just trying to help her, but the screenshots on these dates don't add up. Lex vented about his relationship in March. These DMs of him comforting her are in December, months later. As of now, Lex has declined to respond about anything further regarding Alex, and she seems to have not said anything either. is yet another link of the situation that will probably remain a dead end unless Alex comes back into it all. Another thing worth noting about Lex is some of his alleged affiliations during his defense against Reagan. In particular, one of his most vocal supporters was known as Scarlet Reaper, a tiny COD commentary channel. When the allegations were first posted, Scarlet would make several videos defending Lex. He would also use this opportunity to talk about so-called reverse predators, young kids who are attracted to adults and will do anything to get in a sexual relationship. The problem here is obviously kids cannot consent, and that's why they have to be turned down. As the older party, that is your responsibility to turn them away and distance yourself. But if Scarlet's wording of reverse predators sounds familiar to you, it's because MrTLexify used that exact same logic and exact same screenshot from Scarlet's video to excuse his early relationship with Reagan. Yes, this random 500 subscriber Andy was a source for Lex's video, with this incredibly dumb definition. This was not the only time Lex would interact with Scarlet. He was there in his Twitch stream chats prior to releasing the video, and would retweet posts from Scarlet claiming that Noah J456 had threatened his ex-wife into silence. Soon after his retweet, Scarlet would boot up a Twitter space where he was pressed on his views. In this space, he defends Dr. Disrespect and comes clean about being a so-called victim of this reverse predator phenomena, when a minor in VR chat groomed and essayed him in VR. Not in real life, in VR. Scarlet has since claimed that Lex had reached out to him privately about his situation. To be clear, there is no proof for this, and it is mostly word of mouth, but considering the context clues, it's not exactly impossible, considering that Lex would use the same definition as this random 500 sub loser on a video that on the surface had literally nothing related to Lex in the thumbnail or the title. Lex is also no stranger to being in contact with small YouTubers. If his affiliation with Scarlet ran deeper, it would certainly make Lex look worse, considering Scarlet's history. As of now, the MrTLexify situation has barely been brought up at all. Most people have accepted that it ended with Lex's video and that was it, because admittedly, it's easier for us to view things as black and white. We want to have an idealistic view of the perfect victim and the perfect perpetrator. When both parties are in the wrong or in some kind of way, it's hard to grapple with. The reality is that we will never be able to get a full perspective on Lex and Reagan's relationship, even with everything we have. We may never know what actions are in fact reactions, how the motives of the present were determined by their view from the past. What we can determine is that Reagan seems to be an obsessive, extortive individual who was mentally throttling Lex around, whilst Lex seems to be a totally weird freak, admitting to physical harm and obscuring the facts of his situation rather than showing them head-on for the sake of public opinion. And yet, both of them are full-force levying allegations against each other of being pedophilic rumours, despite that same standard coming back on them both. Bottom line is, this video isn't meant to side with any particular party. I don't know the perspective of the relationship that well to feel like I can make a good judgment. But the public narrative is that MrTLexify is innocent, something that seems far from true. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay safe and stay toasty.